Larry, what's your take on the Germany, the way that they're talking about by 2029, they're gonna, Russia gonna attack us, we're gonna respond to that. We have to be prepared for that.
That's
2029 is somehow Donald Trump is gone by 2029. And what is the long-term strategy under
we hope.
fire?
You and I hope he's gone by 2029. This man
Yeah,
had 14 lives.
mhm.
Um, that's the kind of talk that worries me. That's very much the kind of talk that worries me. First of all, I perceive no threat from Russia to NATO. I perceive a threat to NATO from NATO. So NATO's going to go. I don't think NATO is going to last out Trump. That's if he's not impeached. Um, so NATO's gone. It's moribund. What replaces it? Does a genuine European security architecture supported not by 5% of GDP, but maybe 2.5% of GDP? That's all they need. All those countries, 2.5% of GDP. If you could get them all in accord and you could establish a European security architecture. Eventually, you'd want to pull Russia into that architecture. You wouldn't do it right away because there's too much recrimination, too much acrimony created by the Ukraine war. But the first thing you got to do is settle that. You got to settle that. You got to settle it basically on Putin's terms because that's the only way that it'll settle. Then you develop your own European security identity with the idea that someday maybe Russia can come into it. And you devote maybe 2.5% of your GDP to it. And then you go back to the problems that really haunt you, like cutting off economical, readily available energy from Russia. And you build your standard civilian industry back up. You don't court Rheinmetall. You don't build arms. You don't join Lockheed and Grumman in the world of warmongering death merchants. You build a decent society, which is what Europe had. You think they're going to do that? That's not what history reflects. What we're going to get is a mess, and the mess is going to get worse and worse and deepen and deepen. And then we're going to be very regretful of what we've done.
Yeah. Steve Witkoff, together with Kushner, had a meeting with Zelensky in Europe, and we see the head of BlackRock there.
Of course.
It's so much, we haven't seen these sort of pictures before. This is the first time I've seen he participating in the talks, in the negotiations that are going on.
Trying to figure out which way he's going to jump. I'm serious. These guys, throughout history, at least through 1,000 years of history, these guys always just smell in the air. And they got to figure out which way to jump. Netanyahu's doing that right now. Netanyahu is counting coup on the East, trying to figure out whether or not Israel's future, if it has any at all, should be based on an eastward focus or traditionally the other way. Because Netanyahu is finding out that the United States is not necessarily the power he thought it was. This has nothing to do with his hold over us or our hold over him. It has everything to do with he is not stupid. And he sees that power is shifting much faster than anyone thought from the West to the East. So fast that, this idea of the resurrection of the Monroe Doctrine as the Trump doctrine is so farcical that Trump's name will be on it for about 60 minutes. I mean, China and Russia have already negated the Monroe Doctrine in the Caribbean. So what are you putting your name on? Power's going. It's going. And Erdogan now apparently has even, Erdogan wanted to stand up to it. He wanted to be the focus of that power shift. He wanted all that Turkic linguistic commonality all the way to Xinjiang province to become a accelerant, a catalyst, if you will, for Turkey's reestablishment of an economic empire headed that way. I think he's figured it out now. There's no way he's going to hit China right there, maybe around Tashkent or wherever, and be rushed back and pushed back to anchor, because that's what would happen to him. So he's, I think, now decided he's going to go along with this inevitable power shift, this inexorable power shift to the east, and he's going to be a part of it. Probably a neutral part of it, I would guess. And one of the first things he's going to do is leave NATO. And that will be its death knell. That will be its death knell, because the entire southern flank of NATO will be unanchored at that time. Now, also put up that map, Nima, and see the southern flank of NATO being unanchored because of Turkey's departure from the alliance. At the same time, Russia controls the entire northern shore of the Black Sea. If you want to talk about a great game being ignited again and not having anything to do with the empire in the West, it won't care about Washington. What it will care about is Moscow, Beijing, Delhi. That's what it's going to care about. And the great game will take place amongst those three, and those that ally with each of those as it falls out. And we'll watch from the sidelines. And we'll also be so heavily in debt, we won't even be able to buy a ticket.
Larry, Turkey is so amazing to me. Looking at Turkey, they're part of NATO, but no one can count on them when it comes to health. They're part of the Muslim community, but they're not actually part of them when it comes to Gaza.
That's always been Turkey's problem. When I was dealing with some of the talks and discussions about whether Turkey should continue to apply for membership in the EU, or whether it should back out, and if it just said to hell with Europe, which is what they wanted to do at that time, and we were advising against it. But if they did that, what would they do with their NATO membership? And of course, their assurance to us was, well, we'll just extend the middle finger to the Europeans. We won't do it to you. We'll still be in NATO, and we'll be with you, and you'll still be at your base in Incirlik and other places. And then came the second Iraq War, and the Turks would not allow us, as they did in the first Iraq War, and then we stiffed them afterwards. They let us come down from the north in the first Iraq War, the 1990-91 Iraq War, the first one. They let us come down, and we promised them that our doing that, when it negated their pipeline flow, we'd pay them back. And the Congress never appropriated the money. It was about $4 billion, as I recall, and we never paid them back. So the second time we went in, they said, not on your ass. You're not coming down from the north. And they forbade us to do it. And Rumsfeld had to turn 16,000 troops around in the ocean and send them the other way. So Turkey is a very mercurial character at sometimes, but that was very understandable. You stiffed us once, you're not going to stiff us again. I think what Erdogan eventually, and maybe who's the guy, the foreign minister, probably be his follow-on, Fidan, something like that. I think what they're going to do is finally pull out of NATO, and they will probably establish some sort of neutrality at first. But I got news for them. That magnet coming out of Central Asia and coming down on them from the northern railroads, out of Central Asia from the central railroads, and from the south from the railroads coming through Iran and up into the soft belly of the Caucasus, Turkey's not going to stand a chance against that. The best it can do is become a conduit, a transshipment point, if you will. And I'm going to speak to the Georgians tomorrow. And that's one of the things I'm going to say to this party that's in power in Georgia. You need to get yourself situated whereby you can be a conduit, a very lucrative, profitable position. Yeah. It's a position that reigned in 2,000 years of Chinese at one end and the other end being everything from the Rus to the Mongols to the Moguls to the Romans and everything else. You will be that which commerce passes across. back and forth, east to west. Mostly it's going to be out of the east to the west, but you'll make a lot of money and you'll have a very difficult time maintaining your sanity because you'll have all kinds of powers pulling at you from Russia to China to India. But that's the best way to prosper. And what is that, Nima? That's accommodating a multinodal world, not fighting it, not fighting it.
Yeah. Colonel, 2 days ago, there was a meeting in Tehran, in the capital of Iran. All these countries, China, Russia, Iran, Pakistan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, if I'm not mistaken, they're coming together. They're all worried about the case of Afghanistan, the new, foreign troops. They're basically talking about the American troops going to Afghanistan again.
Right.
And how
maybe Pakistani troops.
Yeah.
Pakistan's having a real problem with it right now.
Actually, as I talk with Iranians, it seems that Iran is doing everything to bring these two parties together, Pakistan and Afghanistan together, to put their differences aside and see the big picture. But when it comes to getting back to Afghanistan, do you think that Donald Trump would do that? It's so, because they're taking this seriously.
I think he would do it, but I think there are going to be cooler heads prevail even within the very hot heads that he has around him. I don't think they're going to be able to take on 300 billion barrels of oil they're stealing from Venezuela, all the narco terrorists that they're trying to kill on the Pacific and the Caribbean side or the Caribbean side of the isthmus, and take on Afghanistan at the same time. And we've forgotten the big one. The big one. Bibi has not forgotten it. He's going to war with Iran. This business in Gaza right now, which is just replete with perfidy, and he hasn't honored a ceasefire in his freaking life. And he's certainly not honoring the one in Gaza right now, or the West Bank, or Lebanon, or anywhere else. But he's plotting. He's plotting right now. And one of the things he's looking at the East for is because he wants to shift what he's doing right now, principally with the United States in terms of arms and arms sales, to the East, where those sales are going to be a lot more beneficial to him, a lot better equipment, and probably delivered on time rather than weeks and months late. I don't blame him for doing that. I can't say anything positive about that man. It makes my blood curdle when I say anything positive. I got a Christmas card yesterday from a guy who said, "Otherwise, I like your podcast and everything, but you're so down on Israel. I don't understand how you can be that way. Israel's our best ally." I'll never write that guy again. I won't send him a reciprocal Christmas card. I mean, I'm being an ass like he is, but anybody who thinks that has lost me completely, lost me entirely, because the biggest disadvantage America has right now is continuing to use its attack dog in the Levant to kill people. I mean, not just in the Mediterranean are we killing people illegally, we're killing them in the Levant too. Lindsey Graham, did you see that? Lindsey Graham, he must have been drunk. I mean, I can't imagine. I love killing. We're killing all the right people. I love killing. We're killing all the right people. Well, that's what we're doing. And I imagine he'd say the same thing about the people that are being killed in the Caribbean, even though we don't even know. There isn't an American citizen, there isn't anyone in the Defense Department who really knows who we're killing. There isn't. I've talked with some of them. There's no one who really knows. This bull about we have the intelligence, we know where these people are, we know who they are, no problem. Marco Rubio, sit down in that chair, and I'm going to take a .45 pistol and I'm going to cock it on a live round and put it to your ear, and then you tell me where your source is. He couldn't. I mean, he could make something up, he could lie, he's good at that. They don't know who these people are. They have just found a mechanism for Donald Trump to use his power in a way that he thinks solidifies his base. Nima, he would be doing this maybe not quite as blatantly, but he would be doing this in Chicago, Los Angeles, Portland, Washington, D.C., and other Democratic strongholds if he thought he could get away with it in our own country. He'd be dispatching people in our own country. And he has dispatched a couple. That's how violent this supposed I don't like war man is. I mean, there's different kinds of violence other than war. What he's found is a very, very compatible with his personality way to kill people. And he delights in it.